Sam Elliott. The name alone feels like a story whispered through desert winds, carved into the silhouette of a lone rider crossing the horizon. His voice, deep and steady as rolling thunder, has carried characters of grit and timeless strength for more than half a century. To audiences, he has always been the man who doesn't flinch, the cowboy who doesn't bend, the figure who says more in silence than most do in paragraphs. But behind the mustache, behind the stoic gaze and slow drawl, lies a story far more fragile, complex, and human than the legends he has portrayed. This is not simply the tale of a Hollywood actor who rose to fame. It is the story of a boy with a dream dismissed as foolish, of a young man who carried the weight of a father's disapproval to his very core, and of an adult who built a career defined not by shortcuts or compromises, but by patience, loyalty, and integrity. It is also the story of a love that defied Hollywood's odds. A marriage lasting more than 4 decades in an industry where relationships rarely survive even half as long. Sam Elliott's life is not a straight road to success. It is a rugged trail filled with obstacles, heartbreak, rejection, and quiet perseverance. And perhaps that is what makes his story not only inspiring but unforgettable. He was born on August 9, 1944 in Sacramento, California. His father, Henry Nelson Elliott, worked as a predator control specialist for the Department of the Interior, a demanding job that required an unflinching hand and an almost military-like mindset. His mother, Glennie Sparks, had been an accomplished diver in her youth before dedicating her life to teaching. Together they created a household marked by discipline, modesty, and deeply rooted values. Though the Elliots had carved out a life in California, their family lineage stretched back to the borderlands of Texas, to El Paso, a place where stories of ancestors still echoed, tales of war, survival, and an indomitable Western spirit. That heritage, unknowingly, was already flowing in young Sam's blood. Childhood in Sacramento might have seemed idyllic from the outside. Golden summer days, open fields, and the steady presence of a father who came home from long, grueling hours tracking wild animals. But for Sam, home was a place of tension as much as safety. His father valued security, hard work, and practical futures. Dreams to him were nothing more than distractions. Acting, in particular, he viewed as a fantasy unworthy of serious thought. Sam, on the other hand, was a quiet, observant boy who found himself mesmerized by the glowing screens of the local cinema. He could spend hours watching, absorbing, imagining himself stepping into those worlds. By the age of 9, he already knew, or at least felt, that acting wasn't just a passing curiosity. It was his calling. When he was 13, the Elliots moved north to Portland, Oregon. The skies were often gray, the rain unrelenting, but Sam carried his light within. He was not the star athlete. He was not the most popular student. Instead, he spent hours in the woods or by the riverbank, drawn to solitude, reflection, and the inner landscapes of his imagination. Whenever the local theater opened its doors, he'd quietly slip into the back row, soaking up every frame, every line, every detail. His mother encouraged his passion, but his father saw it differently. To Henry Elliott, acting was not a career. It was instability wrapped in false hope. The debates between father and son over Sam's future often ended in silence, each side unwilling to bend. Their relationship grew distant, a canyon carved by clashing worldviews. Then, just as Sam was stepping into adulthood, tragedy struck. At 18, with the conflict over his future still unresolved, his father died suddenly of a heart attack. For Sam, it was a wound that never fully closed. His father passed believing his son was chasing a foolish dream, and that belief became both a burden and a source of drive. In interviews years later, Elliott admitted he carried his father's doubts with him his entire life, a shadow that fueled him to prove the dream was worth it, even if he had to pay the cost in loneliness, struggle, and sacrifice. At this point, let me ask you something. Do you think Sam Elliott's career would have burned with the same fire if he hadn't carried that unhealed wound from his father? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to know what you think. With his father gone, Sam left the University of Oregon, where he had briefly studied English and psychology. Instead of following the stable path laid out for him, he set his course for acting. But unlike the myth of overnight success, his journey was anything but glamorous. In Hollywood, Sam was not greeted with open arms. He arrived with calloused hands from construction work, taking labor jobs by day and sneaking into acting classes by night. He studied relentlessly, learning to channel that deep, resonant voice and to harness the quiet intensity of his stare, the very qualities that would one day make him unmistakable. His earliest role was so small it might have gone unnoticed. A nameless card player in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. No lines. No spotlight. Just a shadow in the background of a poker table. Yet for Sam it was priceless. He had the chance to observe legends like Paul Newman and Robert Redford, studying how they carried themselves both on and off camera. He walked away with no applause but with a notebook full of lessons. Throughout the 1970s he worked tirelessly in small television roles. Mission Impossible, Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0. He wasn't famous but he was reliable. He became known as the actor who showed up early, knew his lines cold, and brought a calm professionalism to every set. Then came the TV movie I Will Fight No More Forever, 1975, followed by Lifeguard, 1976, his first starring role. In Lifeguard he played Rick Carlson, a man torn between personal freedom and societal expectations. The film wasn't a blockbuster but critics took notice. Here was an actor who didn't need long speeches. With one look he could communicate everything. And Sam was already making deliberate choices. He refused the clean-cut boy-next-door look that dominated Hollywood. He kept his long hair, his mustache, his rugged presence. That meant he lost out on romantic leads. But it also meant he carved out a space no one else could fill. The cowboy, the soldier, the man of quiet strength. The 1980s brought his true breakthrough. In Mask, 1985, he shed the cowboy image to play Gar, the supportive partner of Cher's character and the loving stepfather of a boy with a craniofacial condition. The role demanded tenderness, depth, and vulnerability, qualities Hollywood hadn't seen from him before. Critics were stunned. Sam Elliott wasn't just the face of the West, he was a profound actor of emotional range. From there the roles widened. Roadhouse, 1989, paired him with Patrick Swayze, where his calm authority provided the film's emotional backbone. The 1990s brought westerns and historical epics. Conagra, Gettysburg, Tombstone. Each role demanded research, physical discipline, and a commitment to authenticity. Whether perfecting the stance of a cavalry officer or mastering the cadence of a 19th-century lawman, Sam gave everything to his craft. And yet, one of his most iconic roles came in just a few minutes of screen time. The stranger in The Big Lebowski, 1998. With only a handful of lines, his presence was unforgettable. Fans still quote those words to him today, proof that sometimes the smallest roles leave the largest shadows. The 2000s proved his versatility. We Were Soldiers, Hulk, Thank You for Smoking. But it was later, with The Hero, 2017, that Sam delivered one of his most haunting performances, playing an aging actor reflecting on mortality and regret. He admitted the role felt almost autobiographical. A year later, A Star is Born, 2018, earned him an Academy Award nomination for his portrayal of Bobby Maine, the weary brother of Bradley Cooper's character. In a handful of lines, Sam Elliott broke hearts worldwide. Parallel to film, his television work thrived. From The Ranch to 1883, Elliott proved that even in his late 70s he could carry a story with gravitas and soul. And through it all, his voice became one of the most recognizable in America, narrating commercials, documentaries, and campaigns with that unshakable timbre audiences trusted. But perhaps the most extraordinary part of Sam Elliott's life is not his career, but his personal story. Against the backdrop of Hollywood's fleeting romances, his marriage to actress Katharine Ross has endured for more than 4 decades. They first met on the set of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. At the time, Sam was just an extra, card player number 2. Ross was already a star, married to cinematographer Conrad Hull. Sam barely dared to approach her, quietly admiring her from afar. Years later, fate brought them together again. By then, Ross had endured marriages that faltered under the weight of careers, expectations, and incompatibilities. When she and Sam finally connected, it wasn't through grand gestures but through quiet recognition. 2 people who had walked through storms and were ready to build something steady. Their love has lasted where countless Hollywood unions have failed. Together, they raised a daughter, shared projects, and chose to live a life away from constant headlines. For Elliott, this stability has been the cornerstone of his existence, the rare treasure he has guarded more fiercely than any role. Today, as Sam Elliott reflects on a career that has spanned more than half a century, What stands out is not the fame, the awards, or even the unforgettable characters. It is the consistency, the integrity, the loyalty to craft, to love, and to himself. He is proof that true strength is not found in shouting the loudest or chasing the spotlight, but in weathering storms with patience, speaking when it matters, and living fully in one's truth. Sam Elliott's story is not just about Hollywood. It is about resilience, about staying grounded when the world tells you to drift, about carrying pain without letting it define you. It is, in the end, the story of a man who never let go of the dream he had at 9 years old, and who turned that dream into a legacy.